Good afternoon. I'm with Michael Tucker, CEO of Perseverance Metals, PMI, on the TSX Venture. Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
Doing great. How about yourself, Robert?
Doing good. So this is Perseverance's first appearance on Goldfinger Capital. So welcome, and also congratulations for being on my annual tax loss silly season list.
Yeah, thank you. No, we saw our appearance there. We were happy to be on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be always for the best reasons because your stock is a buying opportunity, but after all, that's good for investors to give them a buying opportunity. And also I think the outlook for 2026 is very good for the company. So let's get into it. So tell us about the news you guys put out on Thursday morning.
Yeah, so yesterday morning we put out the results from our baseline discovery at our Lac Gayot project in Quebec. And we were quite excited with what we had got from the drill bit. And that was 2.1 meters of just over 4% nickel to go along with just under 0.7 copper and some pretty strong PGE numbers in gold as well. And really, this was a nice validation for us because we had spent we spent multiple years on Lac Gayot working these targets up geophysically, working them up geologically. And that baseline discovery we made was the first blind target we had drilled on the property, and one of the few blind targets that's been drilled on that property in its entire history. It was the first one we went to, and it was successful. It proved our exploration methodology for us very, very quickly. So we were happy for a lot of reasons. The results were great, and it validates our process as well. So very, very happy to see it all develop.
So Lac Gayot, let's just talk big picture here and let's make it a little more simplistic. For investors who may know Talon Metals and let's say their Tamarack project, how would you compare the two projects?
Yeah, so these projects their similarities lie in the basket of metals. So we're dealing with magmatic nickel-copper-PGE mineralization. So if we're successful in finding a deposit up at Gayot, it'll look reasonably similar to what you would find in Michigan and Talon from a metal endowment perspective. We're going to have a lot of nickel, we're going to have a lot of copper, we're going to have a lot of platinum, palladium, and gold to go along with that system. That's largely where the similarities lie. In the geological context, they're quite different areas, but their potential reflects that. So we're looking at something like Lac Gayot in terms of the best comparable deposits. We like to use the Raglan deposit just north of us in the Ungava Peninsula in northern Quebec as probably one of the better local comparables for the type and style of system in the nickel-copper-PGE space. Western Australia also has a lot of really good examples of that type of nickel-copper mineralization. And that's really the best geological comparables for the Lac Gayot project versus the Talon, or sorry, the Eagle style conduit rift related mineralization in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So the processes that go into this for actually generating these metals are all the same, but the base geology is different. It's older rocks. It's a different process, and the way the deposits will look in terms of just their orientation, their morphology, and how you would explore for them will be subtly different, but in the bigger picture, not terribly different overall.
Okay. And then the baseline zone. So this is actually a new discovery. I believe it's hole 4 at the baseline. Or no, sorry, it's hole 2 is the discovery hole, but hole 4 is the best intercept at baseline zone. And this is 2.1 meters shallow of 4%, nickel with some copper, cobalt, and palladium, which is kind of cool to have. Again, to explain this to someone who's relatively new to the company and maybe new to the style of magmatic, sulphide deposit, why is 2.1 meters, relevant? I mean, what does it matter?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and ultimately, what we view that as is 2.1 meters is evidence that the system can produce high-grade sulphide over thicker widths than we've seen in other areas in the property. And the biggest thing we try and explain with respect to how this thickness looks like and what it develops is, again, we invoke that sort of Raglan comparable, because that is the best one. We do have a slide on our presentation that sort of illustrates what the surface exposure of Katnick looks like, which is the main ore body, or was the starting ore body at Raglan, which was about 270,000 tons of contained nickel. And the surface nickel sulphide you saw is actually relatively, low volume. So there's a person standing there for scale. It's probably only about 3-4 times the height of the person for the total thickness of the zone. And then it's a lensoid shape, so it pinches out on either side. And really, that's one of a collection of multiple lenses that in aggregate made this deposit made this deposit work. So that's the nature of the geology of these systems, is that they're rarely going to be a singular large ore body. They're going to be a collection of lenses of nickel sulfide that are going to range in size, at least in the case of Raglan, somewhere between 20,000 tons to upwards of 200 to 400,000 tons in an individual lens. And again, that collection within that broader same trend is what actually is the ore body and becomes mine. And again, in the case of Raglan, it's quite a bit further north than we are. It's in the Ungava Peninsula. They decided to start that operation once they had found just under 10 million tons of material at around 2.5 to 3%. And that was about 270,000 tons of contained nickel with the production decision made there. And again, that was a collection of an abundance of these lenses ranging in size at the time. And now, of course, that deposit or that system is almost a million tons of contained nickel.
Okay, so it's a high grade lens. So it's something like 2 to 3 meters thick, but it plunges to depth. And so, you could talk about, in terms of the vertical extent, it could be a few hundred or more meters, and then the strike extent could also be extensive. So then you've actually got some scale then.
Exactly. And in the context of the broader belt, we've got about 4.5 kilometers where we've seen this style of mineralization. And now we're saying we're in that fertile sort of lens of stratigraphy that we want to be in. And the lens at baseline that we've drilled with the 2.1 so far, that might not be the keystone lens, right? That might not be the one that's going to give us 50,000 to 100,000 tons of contained nickel. But following that same trend into where we expect to find more lenses, then we could get into those bigger areas. And the good news for us is that it detects really, really well with geophysics, because it's effectively massive petlandite pyrrhotite, right? So it's very, very conductive. It works really well when we use our geophysical techniques. So now, one of the hardest things in nickel sulfide exploration is actually just finding nickel sulfide. Once you're into the zones and you actually know what you're dealing with, the techniques we use are actually quite structured. It's, do your geology, map your ultramafic rocks, which are incredibly important for finding it, track your sulfide, and then layer that in with your borehole geophysical technique and your ground geophysical techniques to keep on vectoring into more and more zones of mineralization. It becomes quite a bit more systematic, which is quite nice because it increases your efficiency of exploration.
So you've made the discovery of massive sulfides at the baseline zone. What's next, and how large could this grow?
So what's next for us is, again, following that systematic approach, which is taking that. We're going to follow this up with a fairly detailed ground electromagnetic survey, starting while the ground is still frozen. There's obviously some lakes and some swamps up there that we want to be able to actually thoroughly cover directly over top of. So we'd like to go up there while everything's still frozen, do really detailed ground EM to see if we can track this from that side of things, and then vector in towards with the additional borehole borehole EM. And the immediate size we have, where we drilled baseline, and then we drilled at 600 meters north across on the other side of the lake. We did get about 50 centimeters of massive sulfide there, around 1.5% nickel with a bit of copper, and strangely a gram gold, which was weird and I wasn't quite expecting, but it's a different wrinkle in the system. That's 600 meters of strike that we know has ultramafics that are fertile, at least in the immediate vicinity of baseline, that we're going to do some detailed work to expand on within. There's also airborne conductors immediately to our south, about 300 to 400 meters in the same stratigraphy that, again, we need to follow up and say, what does this look like on the ground survey? Because we haven't done a ground survey there yet, because, again, we wanted to validate that we had nickel sulfide in this trend. And then to the south of that, we've got about another 500 meters. We've got a couple more airborne conductors we want to go investigate. And then further to the south of that, or West is our Nizik discovery, which we'll be talking about in the coming weeks with more results. And again, it all looks like a broader trend that we're trying to expand upon and see where these things are starting to stack up and starting to connect. So the overall fertile stratigraphy is about 4.5 kilometers that we're going to be honing in on. And really for us, the expansion potential is how many lenses, how many zones do we put in here? And we keep targeting these zones. And again, the idea here is that we think we're going to find, ultimately my prize that we're looking for is right now we're going to have not only that massive sulphide directly adjacent to where you would expect it, which is the base sequence, the bottom of these ultramafic units, but also the other prize to go along with it is that when you have these ultramafics generating sulphide, they have quite a bit in the volume of the body itself, and we haven't seen that yet so far. So that's kind of what we're looking for, is where we have that, you know, disseminated, net textured, and then massive material all preserved in the same sequence. We know to get that 2.1 meters of sulphide, it came from something that looked like that, but right now it's been moved away a little bit. So we need to go to where that was and start tracing it back to where it was generated to go from that 2.1 meters to ideally something 5 to 10, hopefully 20 of that composite, where we're getting a bigger zone of continuous nickel sulfide mineralization ranging from massive to disseminated to net textured portions. And then that's going to be the sort of the linchpin to anchor what the system's going to look like. So that's the, I hope that wasn't overly technical, but that's kind of how we're approaching our exploration on this particular trend.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and the key takeaway there is the scale potential here is quite large, and you're just getting started, right? I mean, this is a very good start. You know, a new discovery of a new zone, potentially a new lens, I guess, and then there could be multiple of these, you know, lenses, you know, across that full strike extent over 4,000 meters. Yeah, there's a lot of scale potential. So it's a good start there, but I know this is only one part of the story for Perseverance. So tell us about what you have on the schedule for the full year in 2026.
So we're going to have a very busy year. We bring in our projects with the intent of actually working them and making discoveries. That's really what we want to do. So at Gayot, again, you mentioned we've got a really good start. And our plan for Gayot right now is to, again, fully digest all of the results we just got. I actually just got the last lab results through Christmas. So we're just going to get everything out to the market to discuss what we did, the full program for the summer, fall. Beyond that, as I mentioned, we were going to go in and start a winter EM program over those areas that we think are the highest potential at Gayot. And that will anchor the first drilling, or sorry, the follow-up drilling that we're going to do, which will start likely in June. As early as the lakes thaw up there, we'll get in there and start doing our summer drill program. And really, it's going to be following up on that Venus East Trend all summer, as well as some other high priority targets. I mentioned our focus at the moment is that 4.5 kilometers of Venus East, but it's a 20-kilometer long belt. And it's, you know, it has a lot of areas that we know have high potential as well, but we just haven't had a chance to go look at them. So that's also on the dock to go, you know, do the additional ground geophysics in other areas to try and make newer discoveries in the belt. So anyway, busy summer on Gayot. We want to drill at least 5,000 meters up there this coming summer, following up on baseline as well as new targets that we're generating. And that should, you know, take us likely until October of 2026. And now on our other project, which is the Voyageur front, we are gearing up to do a drill program starting in February on high priority targets in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And as you covered Talon, you're familiar with these targets. We took the stance of looking at the Voyageur land package, which we have, which is directly adjacent now to the Talon ground, about 65, 70 kilometers to the west of Eagle Mine. We took all the geophysical data that was available to us of the Eagle Mine and applied that as sort of a example of what to look for on the Voyageur ground. So we looked at what do we have that looks similar to, you know, the yellow dog peridotite and the conduit that hosts the Eagle deposit, and said, well, okay, what do we have that's similar on Voyageur ground? Let's look at those targets. Let's work them up with some ground geophysics, ground gravity, and see if they match. And let's follow them up with some initial drill testing. And that's what we're going to be doing starting in February, is taking those high priority geophysical targets we've worked up over the last couple of years and seeing if we can put some truth to them with the drill bit, and seeing if they are exactly what we think they are. So that's going to start pretty soon. And I'm going to be incredibly excited. It's a really interesting environment for exploring in Michigan. Quite different than Quebec at Gayot, because there's almost no rock exposure. there's really not an easy place to just go kick around and try and make a discovery through prospecting. You've got to do it through geophysics and drilling. And really, we're going to be testing for geology initially to see if, hey, do we have those same host rocks that are hosting Eagle 70 kilometers to our east. And really, if we drill into something that looks like, I think I have a chunk of the yellow dog peridotite on my shelf here. We drill into something that looks like that with the first couple of holes, I'm going to be incredibly excited. Just to get olivine bearing gabbro would be, or olivine bearing peroxide. I'm going to be incredibly excited in February if that happens, because it opens the doors for so much extra work and so much extra exploration that we can do on that one particular target. Not ignoring all the other targets we've worked up as well. Anyway, that's Voyageur. Near term, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about Voyageur. So I know when we spoke previously, you didn't want to talk too much about exact target areas, but I'm wondering if you can give me a little bit more detail. This time, is there anything more you can tell me exactly where you're going to drill? Obviously, you want to get into the right, host rocks. But is there anything else you can tell me about that?
Yeah, the best way I'll describe it, so I won't talk about a specific location, but I'll describe the target itself that we're looking at. And really, the target itself we're looking at is basically a long trend from the yellow dog peridotite from the Eagle mine. And it's in the same host stratigraphy, so that Barriga Basin. And we've looked up, again, with the geophysical signature, we started looking for those profiles. So what we have is a couple of targets that are effectively bullseyes, like they're about 1 kilometer long, magnetic highs, by about 500 meters wide, and again, similar sort of strike length. And we have, again, with the ground geophysics we did, we were looking for coincident density anomalies with those mag anomalies. And when they coincide, which they do in a couple of our targets, we were excited because, not only is the ultramafic rocks that would host nickel sulphide are, generally speaking, denser. So that gives us a line of confidence saying, yeah, this should be an intrusion. The upside hope for us is that density response that we're seeing coincident with that mag high might be coming from sulphide. We don't know that for sure, but that there's a chance that could be the case. And obviously we hope it is, but that's not my expectation going in. My expectation is that I'm going to drill into the proper geology that's going to somewhere along its extent going to host some nickel sulphide. But that's ultimately the style of target we have, and that's the one we're going to go drill right away, and to sort of test exactly what that looks like. And again, the upside to actually hitting nickel sulphide in that is incredible, because again, we know what these look like when they start to develop with what Talon's got, obviously at Eagle, with the Boulder Dash discovery that they made as well. So. And actually, thankfully as well, it's been great seeing some of the more public stuff that Dean Roussel at Talon has published, because it actually helps us guide our exploration as well, using a lot of the science he's developed over the years to look for these things. So,
yeah, is this the first target you're going to drill? Is the first time it's ever seen a drill?
Absolutely, first time it's ever seen a drill. Yeah,
and that's the case for basically almost all of these targets that you have. I mean, this is kind of virgin ground in a sense.
It really is. Yeah, there has not been, outside of what I call the haystack area, which Rio did some drilling on in the property several back when it was still held by Rio. That's really the only drilling that's been done in the area was on those types of targets. So very much, yeah, the whole area is very open for discovery, and you've got to take serious every particular mag high that looks like it could be one of these intrusives, and do the extra follow-up. And because there's no reason that there shouldn't be more of these intrusive rocks that would host this type of mineralization at Eagle throughout the entire land package, but it's all covered. The only way you're going to figure that out is by putting a drill hole into it and figuring it out.
Yeah, and that's the reality of exploration in 2026. This is the theme across all exploration, from porphyries to magmatic massive sulphides, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to have to look deeper to find something that moves the needle. All the stuff that's outcropping at surface, or is pretty easy to find, that's close to surface, has pretty much been found. But who knows, because this area that you have, the Voyageur lands are very interesting because of the story of how, you know, this project came about. They were kind of left frozen for several decades. So now it's super exciting to see a team with the technical skills, know-how, knowledge, experience that Perseverance has. Now you get to apply it to this huge property package, the sort of virgin targets. So I'm definitely super excited. I know the expectation is we shouldn't expect you to drill into massive sulphides in the maiden drill program, but it's a first step. It's an important step, and who knows, you might just get incredibly lucky. Let's talk a little bit about the corporate structure. Who are the largest shareholders of Perseverance? And tell us about the company's funding and the capital that you'll need for 2026.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate to have really supportive shareholders to put us through and get us to where we are. For those of, am I still going? I had a little froze there. Sorry. We've had some really good support pushing this company forward. So we've existed for just over 3 years now, 3.5, actually pushing on 4 years now. Throughout our history, we obviously just got public in October of last year. And our primary shareholders, people who've been there the whole way, at least from the early days, were Teck Resources. They own just shy of 9%, or sorry, just shy of 10% of the company. We're backed by Altius Resources. We're backed by CDEX Quebec Fund. We're backed by Crescat, Earth Labs. So we have some really supportive discovery-oriented funds and major companies that are, you know, really keen to see us continue to do the exploration we need to do to make a discovery, because we're all aligned in the same way, is that we are going to deliver the most value to everybody involved if we go out and make a discovery. That's always the main goal for us, is to leverage our scientific methodology and our exploration techniques to go out and make a new discovery that's going to be meaningful to the market, and hopefully meaningful to our shareholders as well, in terms of, you know, obviously Teck wants to see us be successful to find a big nickel deposit, as well as Altius to do the same. So it's really that's our goal. We're very much a discovery focused company, and that's how we're going to approach it. And the people who are backing us are very much aligned with that vision. In terms of the capital needs going forward, we'd like to spend about $7 million this year on exploration, total proceeds. So thankfully in Quebec, we're able to spend or raise money on the Quebec charity flow through to help obviously reduce our dilution and cost of capital. So that's the intention, is to spend largely about $4 to $5 million in Quebec charity flow through this coming year. And that's largely at Gayot. And then for Michigan, we'd like to spend about around $2 million on exploration between drilling and geophysics this coming year. And now that's going to be early in the season, likely this winter. If we really like what we've seen, we'd obviously like to quickly go out and spend more and test other targets right away. So that can quickly, you know, that budget will increase quite significantly if we're successful early on. We will need to raise some capital in the near term to achieve our goals, and that's very much the intention in the coming weeks and months here.
And just to be clear, with the Voyageur claims and the option there, where are you in the option? And does any more capital have to be spent to get the full earn-in?
Yeah, to get the full earn-in on Voyageur, we need to spend another approximately $1.5 million Canadian to earn 100% of the option, and so that's very much our intention to achieve in February, March of this year.
Got it. Okay. Very, very good. By the way, Perseverance has an updated presentation, and in my opinion, it is excellent. And I recommend everybody, you know, go through the full 32 slides. Obviously, you're going to see some of the slides in this video, but spend some time and go through it for yourself. I think it is really excellent, and they write good news releases. Read the latest, you know, news release and look at the section maps and the plan maps and such. I think it's really excellent, and I look forward to more news from Perseverance over the coming months. And who knows, maybe we'll actually get together and meet, Michael. I'll give you the final words, anything that I didn't ask, anything you'd like to add here, your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts, I'm not typically a macro guy in terms of letting our commodity prices dictate how we do exploration. We formed this company to look for deposits that are high grade enough to almost withstand any commodity market. That was always our goal. If we're successful, we're going to get a really high grade nickel sulfide deposit. It doesn't need a good nickel price to go along with it. That being said, it's really nice as somebody who loves being in the nickel space to start seeing some tailwinds on the nickel, copper, platinum, palladium basket of metals that we're looking for to sort of help us achieve our goals. Because again, we think these are some of the most prized deposits to find in the world. I mean, they're company making deposits when you're successful finding them. And that was always our intention. And it's really nice to see some tailwinds coming up on the commodity spaces to help us, again, get some additional funding to help achieve our goals, and really validating on that sense. So again, that's always been our goal, is to go out and make a big discovery, and anything that helps us achieve that is very meaningful in my opinion. So.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your time. This is a good intro to perseverance, and I look forward to doing it again in a couple months. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Robert. Happy to be here.